Why do you think that component of sharing makes us feel so good?
Um, I think there's a neurophysiological part of that, right? What brain structure is firing,
Yeah.
when that's happening, right? And reinforces this and that other piece. Why does it feel so good to share?
Mm.
Because for me, it gives my life meaning.
Mm. Beautiful.
That's why.
Because I left that weekend feeling so fulfilled and so grateful and so supported in a way that I've never felt supported, as if the burdens that I'm carrying, I can actually get through them. Right. And if you look at how my life has flourished and blossomed since then, you can see that that weekend and that men's group fertilized the growth of this dream life that I'm creating. You know?
Absolutely. And men, when they feel that sense of support from other men, they feel that sense of, yeah, I can hold myself stronger as a man now. And because I've been accepted by other men, right? Just who I am, right? Without the judgments, without the, oh, what's your job? Or how much money do you make? Or what car do you drive? Like none of that there,
Mhm.
right? Men was just connecting with their hearts and seeing each other's hearts and seeing each other's support and seeing some of the struggles that each of us are going through, whether that's physical struggles or emotion, because all kinds of age groups and all kinds of men there, right? Men are able to share that, feel like they're not alone, feel like they can be more of a man in that place. And then they come back out into the world, like you said, stronger, more confident, better in their relationships because they feel like they can stand in themselves now, in a greater sense of identity about who they are, even as you want to say it as a man, however each man defines that for themselves. Some of my kind of my most touching moments that I've seen in my work as an elder in this work, right, is to come up to a younger man, ask, can I put my hand on your chest? Yeah, okay. Put my hand on his chest. And let's do this. Come here, John. I'm so proud of you for doing this and doing this work that you're doing, this podcast that you're doing. And I see that strength and the future in you. And I'm so proud of you for what you're doing.
Mm.
That's love. That's about vulnerability and sharing your hearts and being open with each other.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Empowered Self podcast. So, my name is John, your host, and it's a real pleasure and a real privilege for me to get to be here with my good friend Walter. So, Walter and I actually had a pretty fun meeting. We met in support teepee at Man Camp, and I just remember having such a beautiful conversation with him. And he shared a lot of his wisdom and helped me get through that sort of container, which brought up a lot of emotions for me. So from the very beginning, he's been helping me and teaching me. And so I'm just really honored to get to learn from you and all the different ways that you share your gifts with the world. So Walter's been doing men's work for many, many years. And so, yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit so that people can know who you are from your perspective. But yeah, I really just thank you for being here. It's a real honor to get to sit with you. So welcome, Walter.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here as well. Um, Having the opportunity, I think, to really share my heart and share who I am and my journey. I don't think it's been a, fantastic journey. And it's been, an interesting journey, I guess. So, yeah, we met at Man Camp. Um, that was a great experience just for its ability to support and see that group of men and that huge group of men come together. Um, that's been part of my, like you said, many, many years of work, many, many years of this men's work that you had mentioned. I probably started my journey in men's work. I'm 65 now, in my, like when I was 40, at that kind of like midlife point for me. Up to then, it was all like, oh, let's get out in the world and let's go see kind of what's going on. Lots of different kind of adventures that I had and around the world and exploration and adventuring and such. And then when I reached this place of 40s, late 30s or early 40s, I experienced this kind of switch that went on, right? It was like, oh, I've lived half my life up to now, right? That's been 40 years now. That's what 40 years feels like, right? And I probably have another 40 years, life expectancy or whatever till I'm 80, right? So I'm thinking, okay, now I'm seeing the other side of the bridge, right? Now what is now beginning to call me? I mean, Campbell talks about this place of hero's journey. I mean, a lot of people know about that hero's journey in the sense of one hits that point and saying, okay, now I need to find more about myself. I need to find out what is kind of driving what's going to give me meaning and purpose to this next half of my life, right? In that sense. It began actually probably with photography and art photography. I was really involved with, not involved with, but followed this photographer called Minor White, who had these transcendentalist photographs, right, that went into kind of spirit. So then I started following this place of spirit and thought, oh, let's read the books that he was reading. And so I really started getting involved with the spiritual aspects of my life, which I hadn't really looked at so much when I was in my 20s and 30s. It was all like, practical, get out there. What am I going to be doing with my life and such?
Mm-hmm.
So then the spiritual quest, of which it's really interesting, but the spiritual quest kind of got me into men's work and this idea that somehow, what? There was a lack for me in my life on a connection with men. I was always kind of distrustful of men. Men screwed me over in the past. My father wasn't a great man. He was a great man in his own ways, right? But he was also a World War II trauma survivor. So he had his limitations, and we had our healing piece with him, which is maybe another podcast. But so there was this distrust for men that I didn't even really know that I kind of had, but I really didn't hang around men. I kind of always attached myself to women for validation, for appreciation, to feel like I'm worthy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was just going to make me feel worthy. And if she was accepting of me, oh, I feel I have some self-worth now. If she rejected me, it's like, oh, you know, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
dick or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I'm just a loser or unworthy or whatever that inner critic or whatever that kind of went through. So through this, I was really attracted to the mythology. I really like the mythology and the hero's journey and Campbell, and I was doing a lot of reading into that. And then I ran into, or I was told about the Mankind Project, which does initiation ceremonies, weekend initiation ceremonies for men.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and after I did that initiation weekend, I felt like I belonged to a community of men, and I felt like I could now relate to men. Men were no longer this foreign, scary thing, but men were actually like, yeah, this guy's just like me. He's got the same problems as me. He's got the same worries as me. He's got the same love that I've got,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's got the same wounds that I got, that I always felt I was alone with, the sense of what was wounded man, a wounded man, and to then see all these other men and in their vulnerability and their woundedness really helped propel me going forward in wanting to continue to do the men's work. And I've been involved in lots of different roles and ways and mentoring and facilitating and participating and leading and through the men's work in this part of my, up to this past 25 years that I've been involved with it, and seeing that evolution of the men's work and seeing where that's all, where it's gone, and how I've had my own parallel process through that evolution.
Mm. So you've actually witnessed men's work evolving since you've been practicing.
Oh, for sure.
That's
And
interesting.
and the interesting part, and I mean it in like a parallel way, because I'm part of that. I'm an individual as part of that collective of that evolution. I'm not separate from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe that the work that I'm doing has effects out there that helps create that sense of evolution. And I can say before I started men's work, right, I'm sure it evolved from when the latest genesis of it
Mm,
in the late 70s, early 80s started coming about.
mm.
Right? That
Yeah.
was when that whole new men's movement or men's kind of whatever you want to call it, men
Mhm.
movement,
Yeah. Men's work, I guess.
men's work,
Mhm.
men's weight, men's sense of how are men going to support and self-empowerment each other without relying upon the emotional, like I said, emotional validation from
Mhm.
women to make us to us to value our own self-worth.
Mm, amazing. So where I want to take the conversation next a little bit. No, that thank you so much for sharing your story. Yeah, there's so many different ways I could take that, right? But what I'm inspired to bring up now is I think a lot of us have this desire to make changes in the world or this desire to like make a difference, but so often we feel disempowered because we think that the actions that we're taking don't actually make a difference. But when you can, I think really the way that we prove to ourselves that the actions that we make do make a difference is when you see things evolving over time, right? Because at least for me, now that I'm into my later 20s, when I was in my early 20s, I didn't think that I was making a difference. But now that I've been doing this for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I have actually noticed a change. And that's incredibly empowering to see that what you do actually does impact others. And we talked earlier a little bit about how you were saying that one of the questions you ask as you're moving into this eldership role is like, how am I? What can I directly do to make a difference in this world? And yeah, I think that's just a really great testament to how showing that like what you do does actually matter, and so you should work towards making difference. And one of the ways that we best go about doing that is to ask that question: What can I do now?
So that's a lot there, and I can say a lot about it. For me, and I'm going to speak for myself around first of all, there's been a big piece of my own work that I needed to do around to believe that I actually matter,
Mm,
right? And that what I do, what I do actually matters, right? Some of the things that I've had to do to think about to deal with this idea of disempowerment is not being attached to the outcome, right? All I can do is offer what I can offer to you,
mhm,
right? What you do with it and what you decide to do or whether that makes a difference, I have no control over. All I can do is offer that. And however you receive it or don't receive it, I have to let go of any expectation of what's going to happen with it,
mhm,
right? A lot of my work and the men's work has been what they kind of like the giveaway, right? Of just being of service, of just offering what one can offer, and however it lands or whatever happens out there, all I can do is bring my gifts. All I can do is bring like gifts, not in the sense of being like, oh, I'm so special, but gifts like, why am I here? Why have I been put on this earth?
mhm,
Right? What are the things I've kind of been shown? Okay, this is what you're going to be doing here. This is what you could be doing here. And if I can follow that calling, if I can follow that calling, right? And just say, okay, maybe what if I don't matter? How about that? All you can do is do what you can do,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And for me, a big part of it is, especially in the men's work, is to be of service in the men's work. How can I serve? How can I help? How can I be of service here
Mhm,
without feeling like I'm, I don't know, responsible for a man? So if we can let go of this idea of, um, you see, sometimes we think empowerment's got to be this thing, I got to gain something, right? I got to gain this power, right? And if we can also think of it as also, I can be empowered also by letting go, right? And maybe that's part of the letting go of expectations. Maybe that's part of letting go of outcomes. And it's part of letting go of, oh, look how great I'm going to be by doing this, how it's going to feed my ego by doing this. How am I going to get more empowered by doing this? Rather than how can I just give and serve and try to empower others? And if they change, great. I am make up to me, oh man, I love you. This is great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You know, if this is you, it's not me.
Mm. Yeah. I think we're all just reflections of each other, right? And so you do sort of, you know, when we work with each other, we reflect back those different parts of ourselves and stuff like that. So,
Oh, for sure. For sure. And part of it is not taking it on like, oh, the guy thinks I'm great. I must be great. Right. And it's important to reflect that back to the man. You, the greatness you see in me, right? It's the greatness in you
hmm
in terms of that reflection piece. I
mm,
love that. Yeah. The gold, the greatness you see in me is the greatness in you.
yeah,
And by my giving that to you empowers me,
mm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
not by, oh, I'm bigger, better now.
hmm
But now we've shared ourselves, we've shared our hearts, we've shared some vulnerability together.
Mm. And yeah, why do you think that that component of sharing makes us feel so good?
Um, like I think there's a neurophysiological part of that, right? What brain structure is firing,
Yeah.
when that's happening, right? And reinforces this and that other piece. Why does it feel so good to share?
Mm.
Because for me, it gives my life meaning.
Mm. Beautiful.
That's why. Then I can feel like I'm making a difference. Then I matter.
hmm Yeah. Well, it's almost like those moments are what makes the difficulty worth it because there is a lot of suffering and there is a lot of difficulty on this planet and a lot of challenge. And like so if we have to go through all that for nothing, then what's the point of it all? But if we go through all of that to actually make a difference in the world, then it almost completes the circle, right? It like balances the light and the dark. And yeah, I can tell that you are a huge proponent of Joseph Campbell. And a really good way I like to look at it is you were talking about this shift between your early 40 or like up until 40 and
Yeah.
after. And people describe it as if it's like the sun rising,
Yeah.
where like, that's one trajectory of your life and you're increasing, you're manifesting, you're creating your purpose. And then you hit this point where now the sun's going down.
Yeah.
And you actually have to let go of every single thing that applied in the first half of life is completely opposite in the second half of life. And so the question I want to ask you now is like, what advice would you have for people who are going through that transition?
Okay. Start. I'll say what was helpful for me and the advice I would give, right,
Mhm.
is start getting involved with my men's group,
Mm.
right? Start getting involved with other men, not just like, oh, we're going to go to the bar and drink beer and watch a hockey game and such, but start connecting in a soulful way with other men. Start connecting and getting your support, your validation, your self-worth. Stop getting it from women. Right? Women are great. Don't get me wrong. I love women. I'm married. I love my wife, right? But I can't rely upon her, right, for all that support. It's too much.
Mhm.
So how do I get my support? How do I now start connecting with other men? Right? How do I start connecting? And sometimes men's groups have older men who might say, hey, listen, let me give you some perspective here, right? Maybe in 10 years, this isn't going to seem like a big deal or whatever. Oh, you got fired from your job. This is what happened to me when I got fired from my job or whatever that all piece looks like,
Mhm.
right? So men are able to begin to find their sense of support, not feel alone. I mean, one of the issues I think with men is so many men feel alone. They have to carry it all alone. They have to be responsible for their family and their kids and all everything else. They're alone. They're alone. They're alone. because of the alcohol and the drug abuse, the sex abuse, all that stuff, right? Stems a lot from, I believe, anyway, I don't know the studies, but I believe stems a lot from loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
a lack of real connection, where man can be vulnerable with other men. What a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And men can hold another man's vulnerability. It's a different support than it is with in their relation with the women in their lives.
Mm.
It's just a different sense of understanding.
Yeah. And I think the same thing applies for women as well. Like, if any girl is going through this process, finding other women to support you is huge. And I think at the end of the day, this comes back to reflection on some level or another. Like, one of the reasons why men are so good at supporting other men is because we can relate to each other on a deeper level. Like, our hormones cycles work in the same way. And like a lot of there's certain rite of passages that we go through, as especially like within cultures, that each man sort of has their own relationship to, and it's difficult to traverse this territory. But if you have other people to help guide you and help support you in that, who understand the journey, it makes it a lot easier. So it reminds me of, like, getting dropped in a dark forest, trying to figure out how to get out on your own, as opposed to getting dropped in a dark forest with a guide there who already knows the territory.
Yeah.
Like, imagine how much time and energy you would save and how much farther you can take your life if you have that person helping you along the way. So, and I can attest this as well. Like, when I was young, I had sports groups that I was a big athlete. So I played on a lot of sports teams. And so I was always surrounded by male friends and stuff like that. But although it was amazing to be surrounded by these groups of other men, what was lacking was like the emotional connection, right? Is because you don't actually, within these moments, ever talk about how you're actually doing or how are you feeling in these moments. Or is it seen as almost a bad thing to be soft and tender and vulnerable in an area that it values competitiveness and strength. But I think seeing that vulnerability is strength in a different aspect is huge. And yeah, just going to man camp for me was like an incredible reignite of this spark inside of me of men supporting men and how valuable it actually is. And I could really see the impact that it has, because I left that weekend feeling so fulfilled and so grateful and so supported in a way that I've never felt supported, as if the burdens that I'm carrying, I can actually get through them. Right. And if you look at how my life has flourished and blossomed since then, you can see that that weekend and that men's group fertilized the growth of this dream life that I'm creating, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it such a dichotomy between men and women, but men, when they feel that sense of support from other men, they feel that sense of, yeah, I can hold myself stronger as a man now. And because I've been accepted by other men, right? Just who I am, right? Without the judgments, without the, oh, what's your job? Or how much money do you make? Or what car do you drive? Like none of that there,
Hmm.
right? Men was just connecting with their hearts and seeing each other's hearts, right? And seeing each other's support and seeing some of the struggles that each of us are going through, whether that's physical struggles or emotion, because there are all kinds of age groups and all kinds of men there, right? There's physical struggles, emotional, this job, home, whatever those troubles may be, right? Men are able to share that, feel like they're not alone, feel like they can be more of a man in that place. And then they come back out into the world, like you said, stronger, more confident, better in their relationships, right? Because they feel like they can stand in themselves now, in a greater sense of identity about who they are, even as you want to say it, as a man, however each man defines that for themselves,
Hmm.
of what that means to be a man. What does it mean to be a man? That's how a man wants to define himself as being a man. That becomes the important thing in each man accepting that in another man. They may still have their judgments like, man, what I do, whatever, but that's where the magic is.
Hmm. Yeah. So it comes back to heart and to compassion and that sort of spiritual connection, right? Which I think is what a lot of men are lacking because a lot of us are more rational and more scientific and more like detail oriented. And we've lost that connection to spirit. We've severed that connection to nature, which is, where a lot of that soul nourishment comes from as well. So, but yeah, I wanted to ask you the question now is let's say that there is a man who is maybe appreciating the value of men's work and they can see that it would be something that would benefit them, but they're scared to take that step to actually reach out or find a group, or, they're scared of being seen and entering into one of these containers. So do you have any advice for them as to, you know, how they can get over that fear of connecting with other men?
Sometimes, sadly, the first thing that comes to my mind is very often what I see is a lot of men come into the work. I won't say a lot, I don't even know what statistics wise, but sometimes men come into the work, right? When they've reached a crisis point, right? When they feel like, oh, my life's shit now. I'm just like, my wife wants a divorce. My kids hate me. I got fired from my job. They're in some sort of crisis, or even if that midlife crisis, if you want to call it. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, or
Hmm.
whatever that is, and start coming into it, from a place of crisis, almost, right?
Hmm.
A sense of angst or crisis that a lot of men come into it. That's a good question. I think so. I would say that there are a few resources and a few places you could start looking into. My foray after I did the research and everything, my foray and beginning into it was the Mankind Project, right? And they're worldwide. They've initiated like 85,000 men. You can look at them online. Ontario has a couple of weekends a year of these initiation ceremonies, and you can look up that online, filter out some of the noise, right? And that you may hear sometimes, particularly about men's groups, filter out some of the noise and find out from yourself, right? Get to know if you contact these groups or whatever, get to know who you're talking to, the vibe you get from them, if it's aligning for kind of what you want to do, be discerning. Also, when you that there's Bold and Centered, which is a men's personal growth community
Hmm.
that's starting, that has started actually. That's who sponsored Man Camp last year. They're also doing Man Camp again this year. And they're now beginning centers around Ontario, of which London, Ontario now has a men's group that starts
Every first and third Tuesday.
first and third Tuesday of the month. We just changed it.
Yeah.
Every first and third Tuesday of the month. Um, John would be the contact person for that. But I'm also part of that. I'm also part of the groups with the Mankind Project. That's where I get a lot of I sit in the elder council with them. So that's part of my elder work, right? That I
Hmm.
sit with them as the next phase of my journey in that organization. Um, Sacred Sons, I've heard. I've heard good things about them. I don't have any personal experience with them at all, but I do know men who have gone to it who seem like they've done some work, if
Hmm.
that makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Um, so those would be some things I might look at. And if you want to look at different organizations, just start looking online. And like I said, but be discerning on what you're kind of and who you're looking at and the vibe you're kind of getting from them and what they're trying to do. I once got invited to a group that it ended up being for father's legal rights in separation and divorce, and they were advocates for that. Right, good for them if they feel like that's what they need to do or whatever. That's my wasn't my thing, right?
Hmm.
So see what they're doing and see if it aligns. See if you like the guy. See if you're um when I first started in a group, all right, so I did the weekend and then they had groups after that, right? So when I first started in a group, I went there, and it's important going through a group is find your own vulnerability level when you go. You don't have to go there and spill your heart out or anything else like that was kind of going on. Just go there, and share what you feel comfortable sharing. Many of these groups will say, look at if you don't want, you can pass whenever you want. You don't have to say anything. You can just sit here and listen the whole night if you want, right? That's totally cool, right? You might want to know who you are and why you're here, but beyond that, right? Share what you feel comfortable sharing.
Mm.
right around it. Don't feel like you're going to be pressured into it or you need to say something and such. When I first started going to my group, it took me about a year and a half or a couple years. So I felt like, okay, I feel like I'm pretty comfortable being able to say things now,
Mm.
right? So go in and just be willing to be there, be willing to show up. There's the words, be willing to
Mm.
show up and then see what happens
Yeah.
without the
Almost.
expectations, without all that. Oh, I mean, all this stuff's going to go on. I mean, well, what are they going to tell me to do? And, because that's the fear, right? That's the fear. What am I going to have to do? What am I going to have to say? What am I going to, who are these guys? So it's really about settling in and titrating your experience.
Mm. Yeah, that's amazing. And I think too that a lot of there may be like a misconception about these things where it's like you're going to go to one, have this transformational breakthrough the first time, and it's going to change your life. But in reality, I think that it's important to understand that you develop a relationship with these groups and one that is establishing trust over time, right? So, like, you don't have to be fully trusting in the beginning, but the way trust is established is through vulnerability and also through commitment, right? And so I think this is why a lot of us feel so alone is because we don't have any committed communities that meet regularly. And if you don't have that commitment, if you don't have the passage of time in other people's life, you don't actually get to know them on a personal level. So it's really important to, if you want to establish more connections and community and have more support system around you, understand that a relationship with anyone or anything is an investment that you continually put time and energy into and you continually receive in return from. With that being said, also, if there are any men locally who are interested in men groups, reach out to me because I'm going to be running some backyard fun stuff this summer, and hopefully Walter will be a big part of that if you're willing. But yeah,
So
is there anywhere else that you're particularly interested to take the conversation?
I just wanted to follow up on this piece around this building trust. And I think that's a great point. I love what you said there because that trust and that commitment is relational and reciprocal, right? If you're committed to the group and you're showing up, right, and I'm showing up to the group, it's obvious I can say, okay, I can count on John, right? He's showing up, he's here, right? He's committed to the group. I can count on him, right? If I'm not showing up, if I'm not showing up in a group, if I'm not showing up in my life, if I'm not showing up in my job, if I'm not showing up in my relationship, if I'm not showing up, what do you expect?
Mm, yeah. And I think that's really amazing because what we're showing is that the work that you do in these containers translates into work outside of these
Oh,
containers,
for sure.
right? So the character traits that you build in these initiations are then things that you carry with you for the rest of your life, as long as you continue to practice them and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the reason why these containers, these initiations are so powerful is because in life you don't often get a chance to practice confidence or to practice vulnerability in a safe space.
Yeah.
But here you do this initiation, you are supported by men, and they hold you to develop this greater sense of capacity within yourself so that you can use that for other aspects of your life, in your family, in your job, in all the things that you enjoy outside of it. So we're really building, forging our souls in the fire of difficulty to be more capable of helping the world and serving ourselves through service to the world. So,
And sometimes that difficulty isn't physical.
mm,
Sometimes that difficulty's not mental, right? Sometimes that difficulty is feeling our hearts. Sometimes our difficulty is feeling the pain and having another man hold it and support you through it,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
Those wounds, you talked earlier about those wounds, right? That we carry with us around this "I'm not good enough," this big shame wound that I believe most men carry this big shame wound around with them. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't get enough. These messages are sent to us from all sorts, well, everywhere, really. You're not enough. You're not doing it right. All this other stuff. So how can I find my sense of, yeah, I'm worthy. I'm good enough.
Mhm.
right? And buy that acceptance from other men. It's not about perfection. It's about, I see you and I love you and I care for you and care about you and your life.
Yeah, it all comes back to love, doesn't it? You know, and I think if we want to look at it from a even scientific perspective, like a vibrational perspective, right? It's like there is something to be said about like love being the highest vibration or like the most energy and stuff like that. So there is like a rationale between love is the medicine, you know. So to some degree or another, although it is a cliche, it is true at the same time. But I think a lot of us men specifically do have a difficult time tapping into our heart center and tapping into our compassion and our love for other men and stuff like that. And why do you think that is? What do you think the biggest resistance is for men living out of their heart center?
I think there's I want to really think about this for a moment. The fear, it's fear, obviously. What that fear is and why. I think a lot of it comes from our initial growing up where we're told, hey, you're a man, you're a boy or whatever, suck it up. You know, you shouldn't. It was for me, I'll speak for myself. All right. It's better if I speak for myself rather than speak generally for all men because all men can be different, right? When I grew up, to show pain or express pain was considered a weakness, right? It was something that you shouldn't do because that shows a weakness, and weakness is vulnerability, and vulnerability is dangerous.
Mm.
My dad was like I said, we can start earlier. My dad was in a prisoner of war camp for 3 years, right? From Russia. I mean, from Belarus, Poland area. My mom escaped World War II from Russia, and all this stuff was going on. Incredible amount of suffering, incredible amount of trauma, right? That they had difficulty holding themselves, right? So if something was happening to me around pain or something, they didn't know how to handle that. They didn't know how to soothe me. They didn't know how to really care. As a matter of fact, it was more punishment than anything,
Hmm.
right? Whatever that is, emotional punishment or physical punishment, um, for even getting hurt, right? So I think as men, for myself again, I'm going back to myself again, right? It's about, if I express pain, I'm going to be punished in some way. I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm going to be humiliated. I'm going to be ostracized, whatever all those things are, right? What those fears are around what might happen if I am vulnerable. So men slowly come to an eye group and they slowly tiptoe in and practice a little bit being vulnerable, right? Practice, you know what? I'm feeling sad. Okay, great. Right? At least you're identifying you're feeling sad.
Hmm.
Right? That's great. That's all you need to say. Right?
Yeah.
For sure. Right? If a man says, what are you feeling sad about? Say, you know what? I just want to be seen. That's it. I just want you to know that. That's all.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think like I can relate to this as well because to me, my emotions do feel like they're sort of either being expressed through you or there's some sort of blockage, right? And it's like, let's say you get angry, there's some belief system or like some part of you is holding on to a previous event and that's preventing you from moving on to what's next in your life. So there's like this blockage that fills up and then all these emotions start to weigh you down and it gets heavier and heavier. And when we can just say, I am upset or I am sad or I am angry, we allow an opportunity, a release valve to basically release some of that energy and let go of that past, basically accept it and move on. And that relieves you of this heaviness and it can make you feel lighter and healthier and happier. But I also, you're talking earlier in the conversation about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And I think to some degree or another, like, what we're talking about here is a hero's journey, right? Like saying yes to being vulnerable, gaining confidence and gaining courage. But I think what's also cool about the hero's journey concept is that even the dark things that we go through are there to challenge us to make us better people. So it's not that like darkness is bad and it's not that anybody's a bad person or anything like that. It's more or less we're just learning. It's all a process of learning. And through our dark night of the soul, through our darkest moments is when we become the strongest people. So yeah, and don't try not to condemn yourself for any bad actions you've done or bad behavior, but more so just work on gaining courage and moving in the proper direction with your actions moving forward.
That's about owning it,
Mm,
right? That's about seeing where that darkness is in me and owning it and saying, yeah, that's part of me. I am also that. I said to my wife one day, I said, you know what, you know, there's a killer inside me,
hmm
right? And she's like, oh, that's scary. I don't know. I don't want to hear that. And I said, look, if a person broke into our house or your life was threatened, wouldn't you want me to protect you? And that was says, yeah,
hmm
I need to own that that's there. And if I don't own that, I can be way more dangerous.
mm,
All right. If I'm not owning that darkness inside of me, if I don't know, and that darkness is driving me without me even knowing it's there, that's way more
mm,
dangerous
yeah.
in all sorts of levels. Be it, like I said, the addiction, the violence, all of that.
hmm Yeah. It's almost like conscious versus unconscious,
Absolutely.
right? If it's unconscious and you don't accept it and you repress it, then it will basically steer your directions. But if you make it conscious, then you can choose what degree you interact with it.
And that's where we get in touch with our emotions. And what do we do with our emotions? And even just stating what our emotions are and having you witness that and say, yeah, I hear you. It may be different if I'm by myself going, oh, I'm really angry and stuff like that, but be having a witness and saying, yeah, all I have to say is, I hear you
Mm.
that you're angry. Oh, fuck, somebody hears. What a relief.
Yeah.
I know it is. I already said as the Steve, I was like, oh, what a relief. Someone's actually heard me.
Yeah.
So we
And
sit in these circles to even just to hear each other
mm,
and say, I'm not alone. Man, you're going through the same thing I'm going through.
mm,
Oh, so I'm tearing up. You're going through what I'm going through.
mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting because I think, like, the greatest illusion that any person suffers from is separation, right? Is, like, thinking that we are separate from other people, right? And when we share ourselves and we're seen, that connection, that illusion is almost dissipated,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like, you merge together as one, holding that together, as opposed to you being an individual dealing with the problems of the world.
Look,
So yeah, if we can showing yourself is coming into union with the other, and that brings us more into truth because the reality of truth is that we're all deeply connected. It's like a fish swimming in the ocean. Like, yes, it might not be aware of the water, and yet it's fully immersed in it. It's made of the same molecules that the water is made of. So at some deep level, we're all deeply connected, and it's the illusion of separation that's the problem. And we can merge that illusion through connection, through vulnerability, and yeah, and establishing trust within relationships.
yeah, I love that. Because when I connect with you after this, after we're done this, right? After connecting with you and having this conversation, a meaningful conversation,
Mm,
right? And something that has purpose and has meaning and will be enriching to both of our lives, right? I'm certain of that. I'm going to go out into the world, and when I go pick up my wife, it's going to be, oh, I feel more connected with her. I'm going to go outside and say, wow, look at the beautiful blue sky out there,
mm,
right? I'm more connected with that. And like you said, we've been that interconnectedness of everything,
mm,
and how then I feel more connected with that. And then when I feel more connected, then I'm thinking, okay, maybe I can then be more responsible for myself, first of all,
mhm.
right?
Yeah. Well, also too, it's like if you feel connected with the park that you're walking in, you're less likely to litter or something like that,
That's
right?
right.
So 100%, I can agree with what you're saying about you feel more responsible for the world around you when you feel that it's part of you. And at least I like one of the reasons why I like sharing these podcasts and doing these podcasts isn't for the people watching, but it's because just the conversation is always awesome. And I just really enjoy having these conversations. And I also just want to commend you because I want to say it seems like you've done a really amazing job of like listening to your heart and pausing before answering questions as if to really speak your truth.
Mm.
So I just want to commend you and say thank you for your vulnerability and for you willing to be seen and sharing yourself in this way with me and with the viewers. So really thank you for that.
Because that was another empowerment tip. Really think about what you're saying in a sentence.
Yeah, right on. But I think, for those people, and this is, I can relate it to myself as well. But when I was in my darkest moments and I had a difficult time loving anything, then the key is like find something you do love, right? So it's like you might not be able to love politics, right? Because that's pretty out there. But maybe what you can love is your cat. And like Ram Dass says it, where it's like you love your cat, you love a flower, you love a tree, you love the earth, you love water, you love your friends. And if you can find something within you or something around you that you can love, then that can be a source of love back for you, which can encourage love of all things or more things. So if we want to expand ourselves into compassion, it helps to first find something to love, be in a state of love, and then that love will just automatically start to draw in more love to it and allow you to love the world in a healthier, let's say, more complete way.
How do you love?
How do you love?
How do you
Oh,
love?
well, that's I'm gonna have to dive deep for this one. 1 second here.
Wha-
How do I love? Um, could I maybe say like what is love to me? Is that maybe a different way to describe the same
Oh,
thing? Yeah. How do I love? Well, I think love is choosing the light to which you see something, right? Because if you understand that everything has light and dark aspects, then you could either you could either condemn something or hate it or be scared of it, or you could choose to send positive energy and positive thoughts towards it, right? So you could have a cat, for example, and when it lays on your chest and it starts purring, you really love that. But then it goes and it scratches your couch, and you maybe don't love that so much, right? But are you going to throw out your cat because it starts scratching your couch, or are you still going to accept it for those dark parts? So I think the key is like acceptance, and then also like choosing consciously with your own free will and your beliefs to reframe your perception of the world around you in the light to which you choose. So you can choose to see the good in all things, and if you can appreciate the value of something or like the meaning behind it, um, even the thing just for being what it is, it doesn't even have to do anything. But if you just understand that like it's beautiful just for existing, then that can really help you to love more. So that is what love is for me. And I think that's how I love is I try my best to see things in a beautiful way and in a good way. And accept even the dark parts as being good and beautiful in their own right.
yeah, I've been working with this thing about love. That's in my some of my my own personal work lately is my own sense of how by loving, how do I open my heart? And a couple of times you mentioned around vulnerability in this conversation. And I'm beginning to discover for myself how much I can love is by how much I can open my heart and be vulnerable.
Mm.
Because sometimes that's all for me. It's about how do I open my heart and just and be vulnerable with another person. And vulnerable in the sense not like, pity poor me, but also vulnerable in the sense of I care about you,
Hmm.
right? And you mean some of my kind of my most touching moments that I've seen in my work as an elder in this work, right? Is to come up to a younger man. I know you think you're older, but to come up to a younger man, yeah. Ask, can I put my hand on your chest? Yeah, okay. Put my hand on his chest. And let's do this. Come here. Got
Sure.
this. So again, I'm going to put my hand on you. Yes. You sure messing going, guess you go. John, I'm so proud of you for doing this and doing this work that you're doing, this podcast that you're doing. And I see that strength and the future in you. And I'm so proud of you for what you're doing.
Mm. Thank you. I wish I could give you a hug. Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah. Can I touch your chest?
Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
That's love. That's about vulnerability and sharing your hearts and being open with each other.
Mm. Yeah. And I think for me, like, so, I totally agree. I think that vulnerability is how you build intimacy and how you build connection. But like, the question is sort of why is that the case? But for me, it comes down to authenticity, which is a big reason why I share the things I share and I do this sort of thing, is because like we all have an ability to wear certain masks, right? And we all have an ability to choose the level of vulnerability that we use in our interactions. So to some degree or another, right? Somebody
Subconscious creeps in there.
yeah, that's true,
Right?
for sure. Yeah. But it seems like the more vulnerable you can be, the more you're getting to your soul or like your actual essence, like
Yeah.
who you are, not just the image that you present to the world. And then that is like, again, coming back to a greater sense of truth because who you really are is not just John Willems, like I'm playing this character in this lifetime. But when this vehicle dies, the consciousness potentially goes on, right? And that consciousness is potentially connected to every single other thing in the universe. So if we want to get basically the more we can get into our soul and connect on a soul to soul level, that connection is ultimately stronger than one that's a more superficial, illusory level, right? So yeah, vulnerability is absolutely how you gain trust and how you really connect with people. And although it's scary, it's also like so rewarding too. Like if you can be vulnerable with the people around you and they can see you at that level, and then it doesn't end up bad or that worst case scenario situation that happens doesn't end up happening, you can trust them more, you can trust yourself more, and you're more empowered in yourself when you do this.
Exactly.
Right? So yeah, and you can love yourself more. So
And it's a practice.
it is a practice.
Vulnerability is a practice. And I think we said it earlier is to start small and practice, right? Being vulnerable, take those small steps, see that, oh, it's not going to be as bad as I thought, or it didn't turn out at all like what I thought it was going to be, or whatever.
Mhm.
So take those smaller steps in that practice of vulnerability. I've seen men come into a men's group, right? And they're all fired up and they want to, like, they're ready to get in there. I've got all this stuff going on. I just need to unload it all or whatever, right? And they come in and they just totally vulnerable. They break down. They're like, oh, it's terrible. All these things that are going on. They just pour it all out, right? And we never see them again, And part of that, I believe, is because they've gotten too vulnerable, right? They go, oh my God, I showed too much of myself. What are these men going to think of me now?
Mhm.
Or what might they be thinking after seeing what I've done? I'm not supposed to act like that, around that. So there was that shame element that comes up, or that embarrassment that comes up around it. I love this place. In this place of vulnerability is also being able to place that place of self-love, right?
Mhm.
And that practice of loving myself was a huge thing.
Mhm.
And not and when that, for me, it took me a long time to learn, when that inner critic comes up, right? Oh, well, you idiot, you did this. How could you be so stupid? Or whatever those inner judgments are,
Mhm.
right? Those are subconscious voices, or whatever voices we get socialized or we get into the past. Is to say, okay, stop whipping myself. Okay, I gotta, like, it's like, oh, back. And like, so I gotta stop whipping myself and send myself to love and say, no, I did my best. I'm a good person. Nothing's not me. It's just like this faucet's broken or whatever else is going on, right? Rather than beat myself up over it. Because that self-love is a huge practice,
Mm.
right? To take in for oneself.
And it's almost like, you're talking about how it's if you just completely open up right away, then, all sorts of other things can come in. And to me, I think it comes down to integration. Like at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're training our nervous system to be more calm in these states of vulnerability and to show us that it actually, that punishment that we think is coming isn't going to come. Right. And so it's like the Pavlov's dog thing. If they expect a shot, then, they'll keep reacting as if they will. So we just have to slowly like integrate our systems into being more vulnerable. And the more you do that, the more likely you are to not have these basically instances that prevent vulnerability in the future.
Yeah, it's almost like it becomes the fear of the fear, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? I'm afraid of, I'm going to become afraid of what might happen here. And if we can just look at fear as being, okay, what's kind of going on here? And is this threat plausible or not plausible? And sometimes fear is a good feeling to have.
For sure.
Yeah, right. Because it becomes the gauge. How safe am I? Where's the safety level? So then you find your own level of where also that, what do they call that? Edge of tolerance or
Mhm.
window of tolerance is, for your sense of safety, and begin practicing into that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. And it's almost to me like sometimes in the New Age spiritual community, people talk about raising your vibration and never feeling fear or anything like that. Like if you're in fear, it's a bad thing. But I think reframing that to say, at least in my own life, this has been useful. Like, because I have had moments where I've repressed fear because of this belief system. And I'm like, oh, I'm not worthy because I'm feeling this. But in reality, I think like it's the attachment to these things is where the problem comes in, right? Is because you feel fear and then you get so conditioned to living from a state of fear that becomes your reality as opposed to just a passing storm.
And
Right.
that's the reality of our world right now, our world,
Hmm.
right? That create fear, right? So we're conditioned to always in this state of fear and want,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And instead, maybe we can go into a place of, oh, I can appreciate my life. I can appreciate all these things that I have, right?
Hmm.
And be in that state of grace through that appreciation, right?
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent. Another empowerment piece. Another empowerment piece is I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's that appreciation and gratitude.
Hmm.
I I have a hard time with I have a hard time with appreciation. Receiving appreciation, I have a hard time with, and giving appreciation.
Hmm.
My growing up, appreciation wasn't a thing at all, right? So I still need to learn to appreciate,
Yeah.
so I can feel that love, I can feel that openness through that place of appreciation.
Hmm.
Appreciating this podcast, appreciating this cup of tea, appreciating the sun, just be in a state of just joy and appreciation and a gift.
Amazing. Yeah. And I can totally relate. Like, I too have a difficult time receiving appreciation. And even when you're giving me these compliments, it's like sometimes, like, it is difficult for me to actually absorb it and resonate with it. And I almost think that it's because, like, we still, to some degree or another, live, at least I do, in my mind a lot where I'm thinking, but appreciation is a state of being. It's like a totally different thing. Like, you're in your feelings, you're not in your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And so learning to shift into feelings is so huge, especially as men, because a lot of us have suppressed our feelings for so long because we haven't accepted the feelings that we have. But the more we can feel, the more joy we can have because joy is a feeling. Right. So if we want to be in a state of more appreciation, then appreciation comes from within first. And then we get to this state where we just are appreciative and then everything around us becomes something we can appreciate. Right. So that's just another empowerment tip number 3 for the podcast is going to be, basically living from appreciation as opposed to thinking about appreciating something. Yeah. Yeah. I guess what I could say is, hmm,
Go to a men's group.
go for a men's group. That's all you need to know.
That's advice I can.
Yeah. We'll see you at the next one. Reach out for men's group, men's advice.
If you're
Seriously.
a woman watching this, join a woman's group.
Yeah. But I have a little talking stick here. So I have initiated this talking stick recently. I sort of just created it with all sorts of things like strings and feathers and beads and stuff like that. But talking sticks have just been huge because they do help people to potentially be vulnerable and to share themselves. And the stick supports us because we know that we're being really listened to when we have it in our hand. So I want to just offer you the stick, and maybe you can close by holding it. And I'll see if a prompt comes to mind here of anything that maybe you can share with the audience using that talking stick. But maybe what I'll ask is for you to just share what's in your heart in this moment.
Oh, I've been tearing up throughout this whole conversation because this conversation is fills my heart. And yeah, my heart just feels full. It feels full of love. It feels full of appreciation. It feels full of gratitude for the gift of this life. You know, I've been given the gift of being alive, right? And what a true gift that is. And I'm learning not to take life or take things or even life for granted. And that through the journey of my life, I'm 65 now, that's enjoy it because it goes by really fast.
Beautiful. Brother, thank you so much for sharing. It was really, really wonderful to have you here, and I am just full of appreciation for your willingness to do this and for you giving this podcast to me in some ways. So I really want to thank you for that, and I'm really grateful to receive. And if anybody's interested in working with you or like reaching out to you, is there any way that people can do that? What are some things you have?
Apparently, my wife has me on a Facebook account that I don't look at. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on what else is there?
YouTube, Twitter,
TikTok. I don't know. I'm really not. I try to really, if I ask for, watch the social media. So I'm not involved in the social media. My name is Walter, Walter. The last name Sienko, Sienko @gmail.com. Just email me. That's the best way.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put all that in the details so people can find it nice and easy. But
Maybe I should get a website someday.
maybe I can help you with that.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. But yeah, and brother, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone for watching if you've made it all the way. And yeah, hopefully I'll have you on again and we can continue this conversation. And we're going to be offering some men's groups again out of my backyard and just social groups in general. And I hope you'll be there with me helping to facilitate and stuff like that. So we can have some opportunities for you guys to meet us and be in group with us, and we can support each other and love each other. So I love you, brother. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. See you later. Okay. Awesome.